Many veterans who bravely served in Iraq during Operation Enduring Freedom or Operation Iraqi Freedom have developed symptoms of PTSD or similar ailments. A large study of returning veterans showed that 52.7% of the soldiers suffered from a PTSD or similar ailment after serving in Iraq. A random sample of 200 veterans from Iraq were selected for additional research. The numbers suffering from PTSD or a similar condition was recorded. We want to first explain why this is a binomial experiment. So remember, there's four conditions that have to be met for us to have a binomial experiment. So let's go through those. So here in this case, first we have a fixed number of trials. And in this case, we have 200 trials. So our second thing here is that trials are independent. So in this case, the incidence of PTSD is independent for each subject. The third criteria is that we only have two outcomes. In this case, we either have PTSD or do not have PTSD. And then lastly, the probability of developing PTSD is the same for each veteran. So remember, we want to have a fixed number of trials. Our trials have to be independent, and we have to have only two outcomes, and then the probability of success must be the same for each trial there. So again, remember success and failure. So here when we're talking about it doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing or a bad thing. We're just talking about success is the outcome that we're questioning or what we're specifically looking at here. So let's continue on with some mathematical questions about this. So we want to look at what is the mean. So the number of people suffering from PTSD in a sample of 200 veterans. So we're working with a binomial experiment. The mean is just going to be computed as n times p. So we have that mu sub x is n times p. So if we kind of go back and look at what we have in here, so we're dealing with a random sample of 200 veterans, and we have 52.7% of the soldiers suffered from PTSD. So those are our key things here. So n is going to be 200, and p is going to be 0.527. So if I multiply those together, I will get my mean there. So 200 times 0.527, so we get 105.4. So let's interpret our mean here. What this means is that assuming that 52.7% of the veterans suffer from PTSD, we expect that in a sample of 200, about 105.4 of the subjects will suffer from PTSD. So now we want to compute the standard deviation. So again, just like the mean, there is a formula to compute the standard deviation. So in this case, sigma sub x is going to be equal to the square root of n times p times 1 minus p there. So this is going to equal to the square root of 200 times 0.527 times 1 minus 0.527. I'll type that all into my calculator at one time. So I'm going to hit second and the x squared button will give me the square root. 200, open parenthesis, 0.527, close parenthesis, open another one, 1 minus 0.527, and close, and enter. So that's approximately 7.061 is my standard deviation. And then part E, we want to know, would it be unusual to find 110 individuals suffering from PTSD in a group of 200 veterans? So what we can use here is the empirical rule with the 2 standard deviations. Looking at this here, so let's look, so we can see that this 110 is above the mean there. So let's look at that. So if we take the mean and add 2 standard deviations, we take our mean, which was 105.4, and add 2 times our standard deviation. Right. 105.4 plus 2 times 7.061. We get 119.522. So we can see that that's within that range. So we have that. No, since 110 is less than 2 standard deviations above the mean. So we consider something unusual if it's more than 2 standard deviations above the mean, or if it's more than 2 standard deviations below the mean.